This is where we're going to get into the realm of the philosophical and the ethical. And the ideological, certainly heavy on the ideologies. But anyway, so here's one. This is actually sent into my email address, so I hope it was meant for Patreon. But hey, Brian, I think I know your feelings on incrementalism, but would you agree that incrementalism works going in the direction of tyranny? And if so, why can't it ever be useful moving in the direction of freedom? Or do you think it can? Okay, great question. So yeah, I am not a fan of incrementalism. I mean, that's the argument that this is what a lot of like political types, like libertarian political types use, saying that, well, we'll incrementally get to freedom. We just, we'll work within the system. We'll start chipping away at the system, and eventually we can just get rid of the system and all this. I don't think it works. And years ago on Sovereign Tech, I covered a story. It was actually and this was at a time, I think, where I was pro Google. What's his name? Lucky? Is it Lucky? No, not Palmer Lucky. Or Astro. I think it's Astro Teller. I think that's his name. The guy, I think he's still one of the heads at Google X. Okay. Or it's just called X now in Alphabet, but, where it's their labs, where they come up with all the, it's their skunk works at Google, where they come up with all their wild shit, Google Glass and whatever. And yes, some of these, things that have come out of Google X, I'll just keep calling it that, haven't panned out very well, at least at first. But really, it's not that the idea was bad. It's just that they marketed it perhaps for the wrong, the wrong demographic. For example, Google Glass coming out of Google X. Okay, Google Glass, believe it or not, I don't think it's a bad idea. I think it's actually an ingenious. I think it's a great idea. I think it's a necessary idea for the future. However, it is not something that everybody should be wearing. It is not something for the consumer. It is something that, and Google knows this, and that's who they're marketing to now. It's for the enterprise space. It's for outer space. It's for people. It's for working. Okay, it's a tool that you do work with, and example. Say you're repairing a helicopter, or hell, if you want to get fanciful, into the future, say you're repairing a starship. You're repairing the Hypercronius. Wouldn't it be so easy if you could have a visual overlay of what you need to do to fix the fucking, starship, or to fix the helicopter, or your car, or not the, car companies want you fixing your car anymore. But, wouldn't that be so easy to use? Yeah. Okay. So there's a great purpose for that. Like in the professional space, or when when you're at the doctor's, or, you're getting surgery and all this, it all makes sense. So you don't have to, so the doctor doesn't have to look to the left to the screen to see if he's going to snip the right thing. He can just have it right over his eyes. These are tremendous use cases for Google Glass. It's wonderful. It's a great idea. It's a great technology. It's just not for everybody to fucking wearing around like it's fashionable or something. It's just not. This is a point I've brought up a million, and I'll get back into the incrementalism. Don't worry. This is a point I've brought up a million times. So many of these tech companies and Silicon Valley in general, and I'm speaking in the abstract. Obviously, there's exceptions, to companies that are in Silicon Valley itself. Okay. So many companies try to sell you on these ideas, and they do it by saying, oh, don't you just feel like you're in Star Trek? Don't you feel like you're in Star Wars? Don't you feel like you're in Aliens? Or whatever the fuck, whatever universe they happen to be selling you on. Okay. The thing is that in those universes, the reason it seems so cool, and I get it, it's marketing, but the reason it seems so cool is because in Star Trek, people in Starfleet are doing shit. Like they're always doing shit, I mean, like the best examples they could give for Google Glass to the consumer was people going skiing, but look, you're not going skiing all the time. Okay. So there's no need for you to wear it nonstop. And even then, like knowing having a barometer, come on. But anyway, I mean, the reason this stuff looks so awesome in science fiction is because people are actually doing shit. They're doing work, or they're doing epic shit or something all the time, of course, because it's entertainment. That's what they're supposed to do. All right. So that's why, you got to be careful with that. When they try to sell you on, oh, you'll be just like you're in Star Trek, but you don't live a life like Star Trek. You sit on your couch. You get me? I'm not insulting anybody about that. Look, if you want to sit on your couch and eat Doritos, all day long, fuck, by all means. I'm an egoist. I don't care. But it's just like, understand that the marketing that a lot of these people put on you is horseshit, and it's based upon a reality that doesn't exist and probably never will. So anyway, that's another that definitely gets into a whole other conversation. But the point I was going to make before I got in that tirade was that Google X has the belief, and there was an interview with Astro Teller where he was talking about this, where he said incrementalism doesn't work. He says, you're not going to get anywhere in Silicon Valley if everything's just incremental. And this is true. I mean, look at, even Intel, we talked about this recently. Even Intel has come out and said that, yeah, we can't do the TikTok thing anymore. The TikTok release cycle for their processors was incrementalism. And they said, we can't, like to stay competitive and to keep stuff going, you can't do that. We've got to make quantum leaps. Like, everybody kind of knows that to really get to the future and to really get to the next big thing, it can't be bit by bit by bit. It can't be, these little increments all the time, blah, 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 blah. At some point, someone like AMD, say, for example, between Intel and AMD is going to come in and just do a quantum leap, a non-incremental leap, and then you're screwed if you're sticking with incrementalism. You're going to have to match it. So that's how you get to the future. Like, the fact Intel AMD is a great example. Not that proof by analogy is proof, but Intel versus AMD is a great example, because if Intel had its way, maybe by 2017, maybe just this year, they would have released a 64-bit processor. Maybe. I mean, they weren't going to do it. AMD had to come out and do it. Had to beat them to the punch. That's the only way that worked. Anyway, so I know we're talking about business. This is liberty and life and blah, 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 blah. Okay, so yeah, but bottom line being is that, no, I don't agree with incrementalism. I don't think anything anywhere gets somewhere new or gets close to utopia, perhaps. Not to say that utopia is possible, but you get what I mean. You always want to keep striving for that. Otherwise, why fucking live if you can't live your happiest, if you're not continually trying to live your happiest life. But yeah, incrementalism, or not going with incrementalism is what gets you there. Okay. So anyway, the person said they knew that I didn't agree with incrementalism. Now, does incrementalism work for tyranny? Yes. I will explain why. Does it work for liberty? It could. And I'll explain why as well. Okay. And what we need to, the part to add into this equation is timelines, timetables. Okay. Incrementalism seems to work for tyranny because for thousands of years, the system of tyranny has been enhanced, built upon, continually added to on the shoulders of tyrannical giants. Okay. So much of what, the reason that that a new tax can pass, the reason that Obamacare can pass, the reason that all these different things, can become acceptable to society is because the foundation already exists for tyranny itself. Okay. For anti-freedom. And the way that, and some of it can get so easily sold because of all of the social constructs, be it something well, I shouldn't say it's simple, but be it something like gender, be it something like social mores, like gender roles, be it things like this that allow for tyranny to make incremental steps. Okay. Because the foundation's already there that they built upon. And so it's very easy to sell that thing to. Here's the thing, is that the foundation is not, the foundation of civilization, the foundation of society, the foundation of, the present social foundation of the human condition, not the biological necessarily, but the social, foundation for the human condition does not lend itself towards freedom. And it hasn't for thousands of years. I mean, what makes up a human biologically, what makes up a human is certainly amenable to freedom, because that's its natural state. I would argue is that anarchism is the natural state of a human being. An atheist anarchist is what you're born. Okay. But, to say, so why can't freedom work incrementally? The reason, so over thousands of years, yes, maybe it could work. Okay. Thousands of years. Again, that's how long tyranny's had. You have to understand, like these incremental steps that tyranny's been doing, it's been doing those steps for thousands of years. Now, if you just want to play the long game and I'm not insulting the person that asked this question. Okay. It's a great question. It's a totally valid question. All right. And I hear these arguments all the time, but we'll get there, baby steps. We'll get there. That's incrementalism, right? the thing is that, it's going to take thousands of years if you tried to do it incrementally to get there. And also, like, using the state, using politics, it's flypaper. All right. Once, you being the fly, once you land on it, you're stuck. Once you fall into the system really can only perpetuate itself. Like, it really can. So you could decriminalize stuff. You can remove laws off the books. I know that's something that actually happens a lot in New Hampshire. I understand that, that's a direction you can go. But at the same time, like, that process continues. Like just the process of dismantling the state validates the state. And it will continue to validate the state. Even if you get to the point where you've decriminalized everything, you've removed every law, it's the last day, and suddenly, you get to say that, all right, now today we are going to dissolve the state. The government will no longer exist. Who called that shot? Who said today is the day that the government ends? Who decided that? Who said it was okay? The government. And if people need that to think that it's okay, if the people need the government's permission for the government to no longer exist, what are they going to turn to the instant they need to make some other major decision in their life? Something like a government. You can't get there this way. You can't. It's a logical loop. Like, you're going to run in circles all the time, and people aren't going to, like, mentally be there, to where they could even, accept, or like even, the concepts of, say, horizontal power, the concept of anarchism, I guess, depending upon your definition of anarchism, and all that. I mean, they just won't. You can't get permission for freedom by working within the government. That's just not possible, because it's antithetical to itself. So anyway, so here's the thing. But maybe over thousands of years, could you get a little more free? Could you get some more freedom? Could you do that by decriminalizing? Yeah, maybe you could do that. But again, it's what's your goal? Are you trying to live like as anarchist a life as possible, as free a life as possible? Or are you, thinking about the future, and you're thinking, well, my future generations will have a freer world. Then the generations after that will have a freer world. If that's what you're thinking, that's a very different mode of thinking than I have. I'm not saying there's anything necessarily wrong with that, as long as you have clarity as to where that motivation within you comes from. And I don't always hear the best answers when I ask that question. So what's motivating you to do this? Because if the motivation is, well, I want this for myself, baby, there's a lot of great ways to, I say this all the time. You can live an anarchist life. You can get about 99% of the way there right now. To get to 100%, I think that answer is going to be for the people that want it. And again, people have to want it. And I don't think there's going to be a whole lot that ever do. Certainly isn't right now. Okay. To get to 100%, it's going to require technology. And so where is the best place to put your, where is the best, what is the best thing to work within to, say, get that 100% freedom? Work within the tech field, not the political. Develop new technologies, that allow for that freedom, that give you, sure, it's a cliche point to bring up now, but Bitcoin, you just created a completely independent, non-governmental economy that almost everybody answers to now in some form or fashion, or at least will interact with. That's a solution. There was no politics involved there. And the politics don't fucking matter. China bans ICOs. Blockchain don't care. You understand? You have such a great track record of how do people get more freedom in their life? How do they make these quantum leaps of freedom in their life, like becoming entrepreneurs or something like this? That usually comes from working within the business space, working within the economy, not within politics. And no, it's not about getting freedom. Look, you want to create a new job, you want to create wealth, you have to come up with something that there is no law for. So even saying that working within the political space, no, that's a waste of time, because there's no law for what's going to give you that financial freedom you're looking for. There was no law that affected Skype. Not really. They tried to ex post facto append various laws, say, to Skype, right? But instead they just ignored it and said, no, that does not apply to us. And they were right. That's why I say, look, like, I mean, these little incremental steps. I mean, yeah, if you're playing a very long game, a game that you will never see the end of yourself personally, well, then okay, I guess that works for you. And yes, at some point there will be more freedom. I don't think you're ever going to get to anarchism incrementally. Again, I think that's a logical loop. Like, I think you just end up running in circles endlessly, because at the end of the day, the permission to have anarchism comes from government. That just doesn't make any sense. Okay, and people will not be ready to let go of the reins of, people will not be ready to not be under the reins of vertical power systems if they're still looking for that permission to come from the government. It just doesn't make any sense, but anyway, so yeah, now I'm not the first person to think this. In fact, Sheldon Richman has said, very famously that, incrementalism in reality is perpetuity in practice. Something like that, where meaning that like incrementalism just means, I forgot how it went. Anyway, the point is that incrementalism is just, will just be you practicing, like just doing things into perpetuity. It's more of that logical loop stuff. So boy, it's terrible. I can't think of that quote, but regardless, about Peter Kropotkin, he talked about how, we're just, things are, the foundations of tyranny, okay, are just so entrenched. They're so, rooted, that the only way that you can get to actual anarchism, that you can get to actual freedom, is you cannot do incrementalism. You just got to pick a spot and you just start practicing, boom, the whole new game right there. You start practicing anarchism right there and you ignore everything else. And that's the only way you're ever going to get to it. And I think he was right. And these attempts have been made. People have tried. Now, I mean, nobody in libertarian circles want to talk about it, because usually it's not done by people that are favorable of the term capitalist. But they do it. Or maybe they think it's because, but they don't have a marketplace, or they're, it's like a war zone or something like that, and it's terrible. Okay, but let's be clear here that anarchism really isn't promising utopia. It's just promising you the options. It's promising you the ability. I mean, anarchism, it's not even a question of what's better, what will allow more people to live. It's a question of what's ethical. And anything other than anarchism is not ethical. I think that's the hard part that people miss, is like, they're like, well, but, hey, if you want to come out and say ethics are a spook, okay, that's another conversation to have. But based upon, this idea of tyranny and, tyranny versus freedom, blah, 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 within that paradigm, let's be clear here. Okay. It's not that there aren't aspects of tyranny that may allow your child to live longer, that may, give you better health care, that may make your life peaceful or something like this. It's the question of, is what creates tyranny, is it ethical or not? And it's not ethical. So regardless of how much worse, on a happiness index your life would be if you lived in an anarchist world, that's not the question at hand. The thing is what's ethical? Like, what's right to do? What's okay? What are you allowed to do to another human being? Those are the questions. So, and all that usually, it all turns into a package deal, and it gets very, very mixed up. And people are like, oh, there's people even that I respect that say, well, you have to have an answer for how you're going to do this. You have to have an answer for how you're going to do this. And even I say that sort of thing sometimes. But no, you don't exactly have to have an answer for how you need to do that. You need to answer what's ethical, what's not, what is okay for me to do, what isn't okay for me to do. And, what's okay for you to do is always going to be on the side of freedom. And what's not, will generally, I mean, you can have freedom and do things that aren't okay, but yeah, you get my point. So anyway, I spent a lot of time talking on that one.